This episode is for the motoring enthusiast. It will help you decide what vehicle is going to be best for your trip. We decided to stick with our old Land Rover Discovery 1. Great vehicle. Where to begin? The Rover itself is going to be doing all the grunt work for us. It's going to be pulling our home. It's going to also provide us with the opportunity to go into the outback, into the bush, allow us to freedom camp a little bit outside of the typical tourist spots. We got a wonderful storage solution in the back of the Rover so that we can do some extended trips. There's been a lot of consideration over these past 8 months as to what we should do with the Rover. Should we replace it, get a different vehicle, modify it, or swap over the things with the current Rover and put it into a new one? I'm going to show you our green playbook. This is where we've been collecting all of our ideas ever since we started this endeavor. So inside you'll see one of our pros and cons list, and this was a big one. Just like making the decision to go with the caravan was a big one. Without revealing all the secrets of the green playbook, this is pretty much what it looks like. When you're preparing for something like this, a big road trip, it's a good idea to think about what you really want to do. Now, there's endless debates as to which four-wheel drive is the best. Should you go with petrol? Should you go with diesel? At the end of the day, it's really up to you and what you want your rig to look like. Now we're towing a relatively small caravan with minimal weight, and we also like to go into the bush, but we're not the type of four-wheel drivers to go rock climbing. When I say rock climbing, that's pretty much throwing anything and everything you can at your four-wheel drive. We focus on just off the beaten path kind of four-wheel driving. So we will load up the Rover, we'll throw our tent and gear and whatnot into it, and yes, you need the high clearance, yes, you need the four-wheel drive, and there's some pretty tricky spots to maneuver, but we don't get into the bush bashing. We don't really push our Rover that much. Take into consideration all the maintenance that will go into it. Are you able to do it yourself? If you're not, where are you going to go to get those repairs done? And staying on top of your maintenance is important as well. I wanted to go with the Disco one because it's also very straightforward. It's an older vehicle and it's very mechanical. You don't need to worry about a lot of electronic bits and pieces on the vehicle. They've been using the same chassis on this particular Rover since the 70s. Having a simple vehicle means if we're out in the bush and something breaks, we can MacGyver something to make it work. Mechanics aren't cheap. Rust is something that anyone could probably tackle if they have the time and some tools. Depends on how bad the rust has gotten. As you'll see in my video, the rust was pretty severe and I had no means of welding, and unfortunately when I was picking four-wheel drive at the time, we didn't know that we wanted to do a trip like this and the rust was hidden. Our situation changed, so as opposed to going down that road of replacing everything, we wanted to just maintain what we got. A lot of work has gone into this Land Rover over the past couple of years since Agnes and I bought it. We've replaced the brakes, we've replaced the radiator, we've replaced the clutch fan, we've replaced the master cylinder, we've put new suspension into this Rover, we've put accessories onto it, we've built our own storage solution in the back, we got a cargo barrier to stop things from bouncing around, even provided a nice space for the dog. So again, keep this all in mind when you're looking at buying secondhand vehicles. It's a very straightforward mechanical machine, so a lot of this stuff can be fixed on the fly without the worries of mucking around with a lot of complex electronics that require computer diagnostics. This Land Rover is a 97, so it's pushing 20 years old, and yeah, with a bit of TLC we brought it right back to life. So here's the Rover's motor. I just wanted to give you an idea as to what we're running under the hood. 3.9 4-liter petrol engine, puts out about 180 horsepower and about 250 pounds of torque. Pulls the caravan no problem, runs very nicely, very smooth sounding motor. The leads are all new and replaced, new spark plugs, new distributor cap. We got new air filter, new oil filter. I'm gonna get an extra fan belt. Last year I put a new viscous fan. This is a clutch driven fan. New radiator, and it's a big radiator. We've repaired the power steering, so the lines that run into the reserve over here, so this is the power steering reserve, the lines have been replaced with new rubber. The new coil over here as well for the distributor cap. I've replaced the battery as well. I've replaced the master slave cylinder. Coolant's always been topped up, fuses are good. AC still works on the four-wheel drive, which is great. Oil's been changed recently. The diffs have been changed recently in terms of the oil. I've done the bearings and the swivel hubs, so they're all good to go. This car does come with diff breathers as well. Underneath you can see the swivels are looking really good, no longer weeping. The whole axle went back together quite nicely, and the bearings are sounding very good. I'm carrying all the extra oil, I'm carrying all the extra spare parts that I'm going to need. I got tools in the back, so when you are thinking about doing a long, big road trip, think of the repairs that you're going to need to put into it. If you're not savvy, suck it up and go to a mechanic and get it fixed properly. Gives you an idea of the work that we've done. Oh, and inside here, you really can't see, but all this was rotting out. So I've replaced the metal that needed to be replaced, and everything's been welded up, painted, sealed. I'll show you some more of those photos in a second.
Well, we all know that there's a car out on the road, and in it destiny's weaving. Oh, when I try to think, I always say before I do, I walk around another day. I wonder about you. You might ask who's you. It's who I wanna be. Old man words are ringing like the bell in everything.
Well, we did it. The Rover is repaired. Was able to get a bit of a discount too, which is fantastic. He sealed everything along the top, so I'll have no more rain coming down the top of the pillars to cause the rust to go any further, or to have the rust come back. So we're in good shape. Yeah, Rover is handling lovely. I was also able to get some footage of the shop, and I'll share that with you as well. I'm gonna have to drive around here and take some video footage of just all the places that have helped me out along the way for accessories and repairs, and just give you a good old tour of Brookvale. Welcome to Brookvale, the industrial park of Sydney. You can get everything you need here. Now, most of my repairs for the Land Rover have been done around here. I needed any servicing done on the bike that I can't handle, I take it here. And if you need anything at a reasonably discounted rate, you can wheel and deal with these guys. You name it, you'll probably find it here. Not the most glamorous part of Sydney, but we all need a place to go for this stuff. Everyone's rushing into work. This is about as exciting as Brookvale gets.
And every time I waste a word just to be kind.
So here we are. We're just approaching all classic car restorations, where I had my Land Rover now a couple of times for some body work. Tony Palace is the owner. Lovely family operated business. Here it is. They specialize in Land Rovers and Jaguar classic repairs.
Yeah, you got it in when it was cheap.
Yeah?
Can't buy them anymore, it's just too deep.
Yeah. Just all the detail that goes into these wheels and everything too. Something else. Wow.
Well, we do Datsuns as well.
Datsuns? Is this a Datsun?
The Datsun. 260 is very popular at the moment. Full paint job.
That is amazing.
We haven't done the insides. We've done repairs prior to this before, but
That's a nice
But
color
yeah.
too.
Yeah, it is.
Right.
The expensive cars,
Mm-hmm.
you can actually capitalize on. You can actually make money on it if you do it,
Yeah.
particularly if you do it correctly.
Yeah.
Like
So you
if
actually
do-
help people make money off of the investment to their
Well,
cars?
you could, yeah.
Yeah.
But in the less anything under 100,000, you sort of
Yeah.
you struggle
Yeah.
because to do a full job, it'll cost quite easily well over 100 grand.
Yeah.
But that's a full-on risk.
I get my motorcycle serviced here every now and then. Now this is a pretty cool shop. They have events here every now and then for motorcycles, be it British motorcycles, Japanese motorcycles, and they have a really cool collection of bikes here. Alright, the sun is about to set and I am cleaning up shop for today. Just want to show everyone what I'm working on. I discovered that I have a busted wheel bearing on the left-hand side of my car. I want to take it upon myself to learn how everything works. I've changed wheel bearings before on smaller cars, nothing as big as this, but really straightforward, I'm told. With these old disco ones, there is a couple of seals, a racetrack, and a bearing that will sit inside the hub. I'll clean everything up. The flange right here that transfers the energy from the motor to the swivel pin to my wheels is all been opened up and ready to go. The seal has been cracked. I'm ready to get in there. I've taken off the circlip. I've taken off the rubber cap and the spacers in between. So once I get bloody bolts off back here, as you can see, I got the one. There's another one that's way back here underneath my brake line, and then there's a couple over here that I'm soaking in oil. So hopefully by tomorrow I can get at that stuff. So welcome back. I got the brake caliper off the disc. I moved everything aside and zip tied it so it doesn't rip my brake line. I cleaned up the outside of the hub, removed the flange. I'm now getting deeper inside the hub, so I have a lock, an outer lock nut, and an inner lock nut held in there with a bit of a lock tab to stop the nuts from spinning once you set the bearing into the hub. Now the mechanic or mechanics before me didn't have the 52 mil socket and bashed away at the nut to get it out. I regret to say I tried the same thing to get it out, but before making things worse, I contacted a friend and he lent me his 52 mil socket. Look at this meaty bastard. This thing is massive. It says right up on that. And as you can see, it's going to take that right off. There's the flange. It's looking good. It sits nicely onto the kingpin. The grooves connect quite nicely. The lock tab back there has been thoroughly destroyed, and I got a new one to go onto it. I'm going to get into that bearing soon. Back here, there's another flange that I'm working on. I'm going to remove the whole drive shaft and replace the swivel seal, because as soon as I undid these top swivel pin, bearing pin bolts, the swivel and the weight of the hub allowed the seal that was already weak to begin with around the swivel to break, and it leaked all over the place. So since I'm in here, since I've done all this work, I bought the extra seals and I'm just gonna tighten everything up in here. I got to use that big 52 mil socket. I took the hub off, which is now nicely over my tire with all the bits and pieces that I'll need to put back in later. I wanted to replace the seals on the swivel. So there's the swivel. I've pulled out the whole stub axle that sits into the housing, connected right up to the diff. Now, the paper gasket looks to be in good nick, but since I'm in here, I'm going to replace the outer seal and then reuse the retainer. But I'm also going to replace that rubber seal that sits into the axle housing.
I don't have no idea what the technical terminology is for that, but the rubber seal that sits in between the flange and the axle. Here we are on the right side of the Rover, fixing this oil hub and seal and replacing the bearings. The bearings are pretty good on this side, but I just figured since I have the new parts and since I've done the left side, might as well carry on and do the right. Now I got a little carried away with the removal of my tie rods. Now on the other side, I put the nut back onto the end of the tie rod, whacked it with a hammer to loosen it up from its mounting point. This time I did not. Word of caution, make sure you protect the thread on your tie and rods. It was a bitch to file the first couple threads back enough to allow me to slowly thread on that nut again. I came pretty close to just replacing it, but I was able to save it. Thank the lords of mechanic. The Rover is now officially put back together. It's good to know that both front bearings, all the parts that go with it, have been now sorted. So we're ready to roll. Moment of truth is now upon me. Wish me luck. I am absolutely filthy. What a job.
Just to be kind. Oh, every time was without meaning. But old man words are always wise and full